Well, this is the first time we've done this here, and sorry about the little confusion in trying to arrange it to happen. I mentioned it yesterday, and you guys are busy. So we all really appreciate you took the time just to run over here for this.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Hey, sweetie. Listen, I just wanted to remind you, I'm here from the people, I wanted to remind you to wait for the ball, wait till the ball gets to you and swing it. Swing when the ball's there, don't swing too early, okay? Okay, got it? All right, remember to bend down for the grounders. Okay? Yeah, the squat. Okay, love you. I'll talk to you soon.
Well, that's our show, folks.
That's your wife?
Yeah, that's my father. Go ahead, sorry.
I throw out a basic question. So why does everyone that's here think that this film has such long-standing appeal to audiences?
That's awesome.
It's a good movie. It's a very good movie. But there are also some very deeply psychological reasons behind this one.
Well, I think the way Tom addressed the genre in such a loving way and wrote a great script. We had a great time doing it. Often that kind of energy stays, it jumps off the screen. We're delighted as much as anyone that this has the longevity that it does and that it's multi-generational now. And you know, Stranger Things is the only thing that's current that has been able to sort of capture the 1980s. But I think that's part of what makes this so unique is that it is of that era and it combines the human, the comedy, and the horror all in one.
I agree with that, and I would say that, and Tom, the director, has mentioned it many times, it's really a movie, a horror movie about people, for people who love horror movies, and it's all of those references and are there, and it's an homage, really, to the whole genre and the time and place that it was.
Exactly. Can somebody close the door? Yeah. Yes. Very noisy out
So it can be like more intimate.
Now you're captain.
Only Chris has the authority to do that.
Essentially, what we've all felt about this from the very beginning is that it has fun with the conventions that you guys all recognize. Garlic, crosses, vampires, but it doesn't make fun of them. And that's important, because I think that everybody recognizes the genuineness of this movie, which is that it's done with great affection for vampires, for the vampire genre. I think it came out of Tom's frustration with the fact that these movies were being made fun of at some point. And he felt very strongly that they were important and that he wanted to create an homage, as Bill says.
And an incredible cast.
I think also one of the things is, the thing I remember most was not so much the acting part, but with all the other stuff. We would be laughing all the time. And sometimes it would be like right before a take, we'd just be laughing. I'd have tears in my eyes and Tom would go, come on you guys, come on, we gotta be serious. So I think that comes through, that we were having the best time. We enjoyed each other's company.
Still do.
And still do.
Okay, so this Roddy McDowell, does anybody have any good Roddy McDowell stories? Because oddly enough, a child actor, when he was young, and then Planet of the Apes movies, donning the makeup, so he became associated with several different roles, and then Fright Night was another big one for him, because suddenly it was like, well, everybody always wanted to see like a TV horror host actually attacking, defending and all that.
Yeah.
So,
A very clever conceit in my mind of Tom's, of the screenwriter directors, is to create that character. Because he becomes, in a way, becomes you guys, becomes the audience.
You had mentioned one point that this film came about when Roddy was sort of, he had had his biggest moment in the sun,
Right.
and so he had sort of a some similarities with Peter Vincent in his own life that he thought.
Thank you for attributing that.
Well, yeah, you did. I don't know who you stole it from, but yeah.
Right. Steal from the best. Yeah.
But he was lovely, and Bill and Stephen and I were all, and John, really on the verge of our careers. We were just beginning, and immediately both Chris and Roddy, who were very accomplished, treated us as equals, and that creates a safe environment for everybody to just come in and bring the best of what they can. And Roddy was a walking Hollywood archive. I don't know how many of you know that, but he knew everyone and worked with so many, but he was also an accomplished photographer and videographer. And we would stand on set waiting for all the lights to get tweaked and before we could roll, and he would tell stories that our jaws would just drop up because he knew everything. And he'd just start telling stories. It was amazing.
and everybody, I mean, we don't even need to say it. Peter Vincent, I guess that was Tom Holland's idea of like doing a tribute. Peter Cushing, Vincent Price, the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Vincent, I think Vincent Price was considered for the role, right? He was considered for the role originally, but his health had sort of deteriorated by that point, by the time we got around to doing it, so.
This is really for all of you. Were you flattered when the remake came out, or?
Talk about
The recent one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you flattered when it came out, or were you?
What? Remake? What do you mean?
I can speak from first-hand experience because I was in for about 3 minutes. And I know from having been on the set and also from the way they originally approached me that they were all lovers of the original. Colin Farrell was so nervous meeting me, which I found very flattering. He brought me some wonderful gifts, and he told me how they really respected and loved the original, and he had watched it himself with his sister like 50 times when he was a kid. So there was an affection for it going in, and I think they did a nice job because they didn't try to remake the original; they tried to sort of reimagine it in another way. Whether you think it was successful or not is up to you. It's hard to recapitulate something like that is held in such high regard.
I agree, and I think if you're going to pick somebody to do that part, that Roddy McDowell part, David Tennant was a good choice. Whether it was, as far as what you just said, I agree with you, but if you're going to do it, I thought he was simply picked to do it.
Well, I think Chris, I've heard him say this before, and it really clicked with me that it is a reimagination of the story. It really didn't have a direct relevance to what we were involved with, other than some names and some basic situations. But as a standalone horror film, it was a good movie. But I don't know that it really had that much of a relationship to this one.
No.
So they should have marketed it better as a reimagination. No, seriously, as opposed to a remake, because then people have that expectation.
Yeah, and they call it Fright as well. It's tough. Questions? Yes.
Hi. So what attracted each of you to your characters and to the script to be in Fright Night?
The money.
First I was an out-of-work actor in San Francisco, and I got the script and liked it very much. It was full of surprises, and I thought it would be something to be fun to do, and that's how it came about for me. I didn't have you know, a lot of stuff going on, but I was very fortunate to just kind of fall into it.
And Jackie Birch, who was the casting director on the film, knew us separately from one another, but I think she had cast you already, and had she worked with?
No, I had read for this movie Mask that Eric
That's
Stoltz
right.
ended up doing a year or so before, and she remembered me from that. But
So she was really very much behind this, pulling this cast together, especially I think for us four. But Chris has a good story.
oh, this is the best story ever.
Wait till you hear the story. They said, thank you so very much. I got sent the script. I was living in New York at the time, and I got a script, and I opened the page, and it said Fright Night, and I went, well. And then, it was described to me as being, it's the lead role of the guy, the vampire, and I went, oh God, I'm a high-class actor, and I'm doing theater. I did A Tale of Two Cities for the Hallmark Hall of Fame, and I'm very important, and I can't play a vampire in a horror movie. And I sat down, and I figured, what the hell, I'll read the script, and I was transfixed. I mean, literally, I started reading the script, and I couldn't put it down, and when I finished, I said, I gotta meet this guy. I have to meet the guy who wrote this. This is an amazing script. So I flew out to California, and I sat down with Tom Holland and Herb Jaffe, and Tom described the exact movie that you guys see today, shot by shot by shot, to me. Went through the script, and he said, okay, now the camera moves in and does this, and then we pan over, and then we're cutting to this. He had it all in his head. And when he finished, I said, okay, where do I sign? I'm here, let's go. And that's really how I got involved.
I was kind of lucky. I had met Jackie by mistake in New York. My agent sent me for an audition for Weird Science. Instead of Anthony Michael Hall, who we both had the same agent. And I just sat down with Jackie and we talked for like 20 minutes, half an hour, and and she remembered me from that mistaken audition or interview or whatever, and then she called my agent sent me the script while I was filming with Amanda in beautiful Palm Springs, another movie, and like Chris, I mean, I read it. Well, my agent actually told me. She said it's one of the best scripts, floating around Hollywood at the time, and it just it blew me away. And the movie I did before called Heaven Help Us was also like a really well written script. I was kind of, I didn't think there were bad scripts, but after a year of progressing from that, I read thousands of horrible scripts. But I felt so blessed to be a part of such a good.
And what role did you go in on?
Yeah. No, I was so naive at the time. I kind of still am, but I just assumed, because I've been playing all these sort of all-American type roles on stage and in the one movie I did, and I thought it was Charley.
Oh, that would have been
but I was kind of starting to see what I was going to do, and then my agent called a day or two later and said, no, they want you for the weird sidekick friend. And, so it's like you never know what is in people's minds, and but it worked out pretty well.
I was doing Tale of Two Cities, and I got the script. And I said, I gotta meet this guy. So I flew to North Hollywood. And I did, Jackie saw me at the Groundlings Theater in Hollywood. I was doing I'm an improviser, and I was doing a show there, and she just happened to be there and see it, called me in, and I read for it, I think at the very beginning, and I knew I wasn't big enough, so I wore 8 shirts, 3 pairs of pants, and put things in my, so I was probably about 6'7", And and of course I didn't hear for 2 months, and I kept calling up Jackie. Yes, no, they want you, Tom really wants you. And I thought, no, not after 2 months. They're going to see too many people. But Tom liked me from the very beginning, and I was just so it was my first job, so I was really happy to work with everybody.
And for those of you who don't know, the Groundlings, this is probably one of the most famous comedy improv groups in the world, and has turned out, God, any number of extraordinary people, including John Starr.
Well, I was auditioning with real 16, 17, 18-year-old girls, and I was 26. So I would look down the row, and think, what am I doing here? This is crazy. But I was lucky in that the character had such a dramatic turn within an arc within the story, and I still looked young enough to pull off the high school and then could do that transition, because I was like, well, I wouldn't hire me as an 18-year-old.
Some of you had some real serious makeup effects. How was that to go through?
His was the worst.
Yeah, the transformation scene with the steak and everything, that was filmed after the production was pretty much finished, and everyone went home, and I just stayed, and we filmed in a cold, dark, dusty, empty studio for 3 days, and even it was torture. It just really was pretty unpleasant, but kind of like the other makeup, like with the cross and the fangs, you know, once it was all put together, I mean, I just felt that it was just this, it was amazing. You know, these makeup guys were, you know, so talented, you know, so you trusted them, but, you know, nonetheless, after being in a chair for 12, 14 hours, it's agony, but, you know, it was definitely worth it, you know, when I saw it on the screen, it just, wow.
And as I've spoken with many of you, it's all practical effects way back when. And it was sort of state of the art, and everybody, it was in competition, the different films who had this element to it, and we were going to outdo, so we really become the guinea pigs in a way. And I did have 3 sets of contact lenses, and I never wore lenses, so I wasn't that familiar. They put them in and take them out as soon as possible. And the second set of lenses were really troubling, and I didn't want to squeak the wheel, and I just wanted to get in there and be a pro, but I had to just say, hang on, and they took them out, and they'd forgotten to sand the back of the glass. So
These were glass, by the way, they were not glass.
I'm glad I squeaked, just saying. But you're right, once you fall into a character in that way, and it gets into this sort of surreal place, you still hang on to the character you are, but it really does transform you. There's no doubt about it.
And I think we all recognize that we were involved in something that was, for its time, kind of cutting edge. The makeup guys were all kind of gonzo, you know, a little on the crazy side. The FX makeup people. And they were willing to just, you know, say, what the hell, let's just go for it. And they did a lot of the time, and sometimes it was excruciating, but at the same time, it ended up being worth it.
Oh, yeah, hi. I had a question and also a comment, but as I was watching the scene between, you know, between you, Chris, and
Amy?
Well, Geoffrey, I was noticing it seemed like it almost had a positive message when he was confronting Ed and he was saying, now you don't have to be alone anymore. And it made me feel like really sympathy for both of the characters. And I was wondering, was that the original script, was it that kind of sympathetic to both characters, or was that like a later?
No, absolutely. It was in the script from the very beginning. It was very clear that Jerry had 2 sides to him, and so did Ed. And that's one of the reasons, again, we were talking about the reason why the movie has lasted, is because there are these dualities in all the characters. They're not sort of straight line all the way through, that they have ambivalences. They have, that at one point Jerry offers, what's your name again?
William Ragsdale.
That
fan of yours.
Thank you. I'm very fortunate to be sitting right beside him. And those things existed all the way through. That is, he gives Charley a chance at one point. Please don't you understand how difficult it is to be me? And do you want to really go this way? I'll give you a chance. And the scene, I always love the scene with Evil in it. I just thought that scene was just wonderful.
We also, I think the genius of Tom was he let us try some stuff too. The scene that I'm in with Bill and Art Evans, where I go, all that stuff. I mean, I did that in the audition. It wasn't in the script, and I think I did it that way once or twice, and then we did it the way it was written. And I thought, Tom will never use this, but there it was in the thing. But that's how smart he was, to use the stuff that he loved instead of trying to necessarily stick with every single beat he wrote.
Right, you were saying that in the one time that Billy Cole at that point is supposed to be sort of menacing, and giving Charley the you better watch yourself kind of thing. And you decided to go the completely other way.
I decided to go the other way because if somebody's menacing, the only way to throw off the police is not to be menacing. So I figured I'll just be kind of as casual about it, make him look like an idiot. And that was really easy.
When I read the script, I didn't see that at all. And then when I saw you doing it, on the finished product, it was great.
I got 10 for you.
Really spontaneous and,
Keep going.
Okay.
He's done well. You have a question, Stan?
Yes, I'm just curious, from the studio standpoint versus the creative team, did they want you to play it straight, campy, in the middle somewhere? Was there any kind of decision for the whole creative process to go in one particular direction?
I think the only trouble that Tom had with the studio was time. The studios are always saying, you're not moving fast enough, you're a day behind, you're 2 days behind, whatever. But my recollection was that there was no oversight in terms of the creative process.
And these were real people. And again, I think that's part of what works in the film, is that this is a real situation that then has this fantastical twist to it. But our relationships were very real, and again, you have to suspend disbelief at some point, but it wasn't as if we set out to do something where you can't really act fantastical, it'll just be bad. So what you do is you stay in the moment and act the relationship and the given circumstances, and I think that comes across.
Also, Tom told me many times the studio didn't care anything about this movie. It was a loss leader for them.
Yeah.
So they, the less they care about it, the less they're there. And that was worked to everybody's
Yeah,
bad.
studio guys were never around. They weren't there at all. And I remember Tom saying that he thought that that Columbia, the studio, had used this as a placeholder for the effects group, because they just done it was Boss Films, and they had done Ghostbusters. And so they wanted to sort of keep them in their back pocket, so they gave it, this was sort of their project, and gave them this as a way to keep them employed and loyal.
One question. So I was a great fan of the first Fright Night movie, and I was equally as great of a fan of Fright Night 2. What was the logic behind not having Amy involved, but rather a separate, second girlfriend, if you will? And you know what I mean? Was there
Logic, did you say?
Yes. So it's like, was there a reason behind why you guys decided to just go with a separate entity as opposed to Amy, or?
I think, ironically, Chris probably knows more about this than I do. It's a great story.
And with that said, to kind of piggyback off that question, why, instead to just kind of change it as being his sister as opposed to?
I think that I think originally, as I understand it, there were
I have
plans.
no idea.
Bus.
There was a second one?
They had tried to, I think they just wanted to make they wanted to cut costs and they wanted to do a cheaper version. So they thought the fewer people that return, maybe, they can save money that way. That's, Tom knows more about that, but I think that's it. And I think the girlfriend thing is that, every Bond has a new girlfriend. Every girlfriend is always new most of the time.
So you're comparing yourself to James Bond?
I could kill you from right here. So tools in my belt. Where's my
All right, we have time for one last question, and it's you.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons the movie is so popular is it was the perfect blend of horror and comedy. And there were some brilliant comedic moments in the movie. Like, for example, when William, the footsteps were on the ceiling and you kind of did that with the footsteps and things like that. And I'm wondering if that was the director's vision or if you just kind of threw that in there and other comedic moments.
That I remember specifically was Tom saying, follow, he's here. So that was just him directing. Yeah.
Because I didn't know if that was his vision to make it because there was some really funny moments. I didn't know if that was his vision to make it as funny as it was. I didn't know if that was maybe.
I think like Jonathan said, we're all kind of fun-loving people, and we got a chance to sort of infuse a little bit of that with different scenes.
Yeah, and as John said too, if you had an idea, as long as it didn't deviate drastically from the script, Tom was game. I suggested when I researched bats, most bats, 90% of the bats in the world are fruit bats. So I said, well, why not have a little fruit bat DNA in Jerry, and he eats fruit, and Tom loved it, and he used it. So, it was a very collaborative effort.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you very much.